Hi, BSU Pop, and congratulations on finishing week 2. We are almost halfway through this summer session, and I am proud of all the progress you're making. This video serves to do a couple things. One, it will recap some information from week 2 and give you some information regarding the test and other things, and also it will set you up and remind you for things you need to do for week 3. As a reminder, given that yesterday was a university holiday, the content for this week is a little bit more truncated, and so we're really only covering the gender and sexuality unit, and that runs from today at about 8 a.m. until Friday at 5 p.m. So let's get started. All right, let's talk about week 2. Probably the most important thing for you guys is that we took test 1. So when it was all said and done, the average of test 1 was right around a 70, which I think sometimes at the university and even in summer classes, that's pretty standard, but that's a little bit low for me. I typically have an average on test 1 right around 76 or 78 points. And so I took a look at some of the questions, and while there weren't any questions that everyone got wrong, there were a couple questions that enough of you got wrong that it made me think that I had some responsibility, either in terms of how it was taught or in terms of the clarity of the question. So I have given you 6 points added onto your score, and you can see that on the grade book. And if you take responsibility for an additional 6 points, I'm guessing that you're probably going to be a little bit closer to where you wanted to be. That said, it was a pretty typical distribution. Only a few of you got A's. Most of you were right in that C and B range. And there were a few of you down at the bottom, who did unfortunately get less than a passing score. But I do want to say that I'm not totally concerned with the test scores. That's because typically the average on the first test is much lower than it is on the final exam, just because you all are still really getting used to being a media critic, really understanding texts, and moving, as the university requires in this Tier 2 class, from knowledge to judgment. And that's a really kind of difficult cognitive leap to make. And sometimes it takes longer than the time available to get to test 1. And so typically by the end of the semester, people are feeling a lot more confident with the material. Also, the other reason why I'm not super concerned is that most of the problems resided with the multiple choice questions. So you guys are still kind of getting tripped up and tricked a little bit on those multiple choice questions. But the short answers in the essays were far and away much better than your multiple choice. And on the final exam, it's a longer exam, and most of the points come from short answer and essay questions. And so I think the final exam will play to your strengths a little bit better. And just remember also that you are processing what should have been, almost 6 weeks of material, maybe a little bit more in 2. And so sometimes it takes us a while for our brain to kind of catch up with everything that we're reading. Also, I noticed that during these last couple of weeks that the quiz time has maybe been an issue for some of you, and 12 minutes is what I give in a face-to-face class, but I'm not sure. There might be some things going on with the medium, and so I've changed it for this week at least to 15 minutes, and we'll kind of see how that goes. And so it'll give you a little bit more time. And honestly, guys, I can't remember if the instructions for the quizzes say 12 minutes or 15. If they say 12 minutes, it's just because I had created the quizzes a long time ago, and I just didn't go back in and change the instructions, but I did go in and change the time. So you got 15 minutes for the 2 quizzes that you have this week. And so take advantage of it, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more time to kind of be contemplative and intentional and better with your answers. The last thing on this is that I did put some sample full credit test 1 answers, and you can find them at the sample quiz answers button on the left-hand side of our Blackboard site. All right, week 3, we are covering gender and sexuality. It is seriously one of my favorite units in our class, and really we're going to be talking a lot about the different ways men and women are portrayed, both on television and in fictional portrayals, but also in commercials. And we're going to be learning a lot of kind of key vocabulary words, such as heteronormativity, hypermasculinity, and so I think you have a lot of enjoyable things ahead of you. We're also going to be talking about kind of this new phenomenon, which is girl power. power, in which we see really empowered characters. We see, commercials that are really emulating a lot of feminist girl power messages. And so we're going to be talking about whether or not that's a good thing, especially given what we learned last week regarding Thomas Frank and how he kind of says that corporations try to sell us particular values. And so we are suckered in by the values and end up like buying their product. And last, we're going to talk about the LGBTQ world. We're going to be talking a lot about Ellen DeGeneres. I'm not sure how many of you knew that Ellen DeGeneres had a sitcom before she was like the Ellen that we know. And on that sitcom, she came out and she was one of the first mainstream television characters to do so. And we talk a lot about visibility and whether or not just having a visible character who is gay is enough. And one of your authors for the week, Bonnie Dow, argues that just because Ellen is gay does not mean that it is a progressive portrayal. And she's got some problems with the way the sitcom handled her coming out. Now, you have a lot of academic readings this week. And so just a reminder, a couple of units ago, I posted that really helpful PowerPoint slide about how to do academic reading. And so if you're struggling, make sure you go back and take a look at that. So this week, you've got the normal kind of reading and clips, and it's all organized for you under the weekly module. You do have to take 2 quizzes this week. They opened up this morning at 8 a.m., and they are both open until 5 o'clock on Friday. I really want to encourage you to do the discussion boards. I know they're not graded, but it does replicate and kind of repeat class experience, and it's really helpful for you to read your other classmates' discussion boards. Also, in your copious amounts of spare time, you should start thinking about your problem solver project, and you can find that under assignment descriptions, which is on the left-hand side of our Blackboard site. I have a pretty lengthy description. I have the rubric, and I also have a fun kind of Powtoon video that I put together. I just want to remind you that my office hours are tomorrow. I'm on Skype from 9 to 11. KL McAuliffe is my Skype name, although I would be happy to talk on the phone tomorrow too from 9 to 11. I am not going to be available Friday and most of Thursday for phone consultations, although certainly I would be available to answer email. So I want to just encourage you to plan ahead. If you know that you need some help on the problem solver project, or you know that you want to talk over some exam questions or something like that, make sure that you are carving out time to chat with me. All right, that's all I got. Have a good week. I'll talk to you soon.